Miss Universe podcast.
Where do we go from here? Where do we go from here?
Miss Universe podcast.
Where do we go from here? Where do we go from here?
Miss Universe podcast.
Hello and welcome to a mass podcast. Obviously, you survived last podcast. This is good if you're hearing me. As I said, I even found the title Are You Charitable from the previous podcast. But I like to share story. To be honest with you, I used to do not do that because the way we grew up was we keep it to ourselves. I still keep a lot of stuff to myself, but I do share a few things that will help others. This is not about crying and bringing Kleenex and feeling sad. Like I said on previous podcast, I am not here to hear pity or people pity me because I could care less. Pity is a negative energy to me. It's not helping. A prayer is more powerful than pity party. But sharing some of the stories help to move on in our lives and can help other people or inspired people, because I like to be inspired and I like to listen and some of the stories, if the stories has something at the end that instead than being a pity party, because a pity party make me walk away. But if you have an outcome, when you're a fixer, we are somebody who close the gap like I do in businesses. This is what I do. I like to go elevate, change, modify. Whatever doesn't work, make it work. Whatever works, keeps working. We don't change, we don't touch. This is my personal motto. But it's very inspiring when you hear stories that you can relate to and just say, yeah, this is how it happened to me. This is what happened, blah, blah, blah. Also, making sure that your family is safe. It doesn't matter if your family is humans or animals. It doesn't matter what kind it is. But it really encompasses what we are here to do in our lives. But being a fixer, being somebody that moves forward and keep faith. One of the biggest things I feel for me, for all of the experience I went through, and there were some pretty ugly one, pretty bad one, especially the dark night of the soul was one of the worst thing ever that I've been through, and I've been through some dark night of the soul, but this one was the ticket of not coming back from, actually. It was a one-way trip, and lucky if I made it on the other side, which I did, but it's really seeing the determination and seeing on which state are we. When I was 15 years old, I had a pretty horrifying car crash. I was the only one injured in the entire story. My sister had that. We talked about it years after that. She had those cars, which were Renault 5. They had the roof of the car had those diagonal, but in 3D or in 5D, 3D. So when the car flipped around, she was against it. She had the mark of the top of the design of the roof of the car, which is funny, okay? You don't have to be horrified. Like I said in my previous podcast, this is what we do, okay? This is what we do. We laugh about terrible situation we went through because this is the way we cope, okay? I'm not gonna be crying, but we were talking about it and I'm like, holy crap, she got it for a week. And I'm like, that's awesome. You get a permanent tattoo of the roof of the car. Oh, the inside of the roof of the car. And I'm like, yeah, because they had those. So I don't know if it was, I think it was maybe fire retardant or whatever it was for the top of the car. Maybe they had that new design. But poor sister. Oh, well, me, I was worse than she was. It was just, and I remember And it was in August 2nd or the 4th that crash happened. Oh, next year will be, holy crap, next year is going to be what? 2025, and it happened in 85. Holy moly, 40 years ago. More like something like that. And it was very interesting because I remember never asked that question. That was watch out what you're saying. And I have to be careful what I'm saying. Or I always say to people, be careful what you're saying in front of me because it will happen. So don't speak things you don't want to happen to your life. Because for a month prior to that accident, I asked myself, because my mom had a Renault 5. Oh, her car was so nice. She had one of them. Oh, I will tell you the story when I passed my license on this one. It was awesome. I did not have an accident. No. We're talking Emma thinking she's in the F1, and oh my God, I had a blast on the highway. So back to that story. And I asked for, I don't know if that was for a month. Yeah. How do you get out of the back of the car? Because those car, it was a 2 doors, or what do you call it, a 3 doors, which mean driver, front passenger, and you got the trunk. That's a 3 doors. For people who don't know, because they said, oh my God, you get a 3 doors. No, it was a 2 doors, and you had to flip the driver or the front passenger, which called the death seat, by the way. It's just lovely. And I said to my sister, the death seat change, it was behind the passenger because I was behind the driver, because I was behind the driver actually. And so it was two doors, so you had to flip the front seat. So the front seat had to flip in order for you to access the back seats, and that's how it was. But I asked a question which I should never ask. How do you get out of a car? How do you get out of the car within a window? Because it wasn't a big window. And when the car flipped, it crushed, the window exploded because I turned my head at the last minute, lucky me on this one. At some level, my hand wasn't as lucky than the head, but I got all of the shattered glasses that caught actually my that was this one or the other one. It was, I don't remember which ear it caught. I even by not even a few millimeters, I would lose my ears actually, because the glasses caught it. And the rest and the impact, because I remember the impact, it was the back of the head who got all of the glass. Otherwise, it would have been I could have been, I would have been disfigured, because I would have had half of the glass exploding directly on my face. But I never asked the question, how do you get out of the back of a car? Because I did for a month. And guess what? That night I got the answer. Holy crap. I did crawl. We crawled out of the car by the window. I got the friend, I got my sister out. I walked around. I remember that it was like past what? But it was, we broke our car fuse, so that was another thing too. And I ended up at the hospital. But it was very interesting when you asked for this. I remember that. I don't know why I'm talking about this today. I'm like, holy crap. This is not what you want to hear about. But yeah, that was very, very interesting. And that was August. That was in August. And I don't remember if it was the 4th or the 2nd. I have to look at my medical records for this one. But I remember it was in 1985. Good year. Great song. We get great music on that time of the year. It was awesome. But very interesting. As I said, very interesting life when you go back and look at the stupidest things we have done, the insane stuff, and these kind of things. When you ask a question, how do you get, I'm like, what? No, this is not the kind of obsession and question you ask, because ask and you shall receive. Now back forward few years afterwards, then I passed my driver's license, and I remember my mom needed to go. It was Oh my God. It was another epic moment when Daddy Dearest got his aneurysms. He was at the hospital, one hospital. He was supposed to go to neurology in Lyon, where it's the number one center for neurology for the brain. And they lost him. The patient between hospitals, somebody did not check in him. So imagine Mommy Dearest didn't know head to toes what's going on, totally lost in her world. Are you done? Shaky, 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 because you're making a lot of noise, honey. Yes, you do. And so she was lost in her little brain. So I was there. It was nice. It was the beginning of summer or something like that. Was it at school? No, I wasn't at school at that time, which was a good thing. And she was to be interviewed down south over 400 kilometers. Hey, come on, guys. Down over there. So she was supposed to leave the next day. I was going with her, actually. And we were trying to find Daddy Dearest. We were trying to find him because he was supposed to be in one hospital, and he was being transported in neurology to see and get CT scan and stuff like to figure out, where the aneurysm was, because blah blah blah. And they did not kept him in St. Anne. They transfer him in neurology. They never did the entry. So imagine you go to St. Anne first, then you drove more than half an hour in downtown to neurology, which was the site to the asylum Vinatier. Vinatier, I remember that. So Vinatier was an asylum very well renowned for all of the crazy, the nutcase and the insane. And I'm not talking the nutcase like, oh, you're okay. Deeply mentally, disturbed to the point that they could not be in society. Dangerous one. I'm talking Vinatier wasn't the one you walk in the park, you have a breakdown. No. I'm talking people who were extremely dangerous. They had a little white coat on them that, you keep them away from people to harm themselves and to harm people. This is how it was. But this one shut down at that point. He wasn't there anymore, because I had a joke about that with Daddy Dearest too, because we're not very this is Gen X here we're talking. We were very direct, and we are direct, which is, you know what, I'm going to be honest with you, it bites at some level, but it's a good thing in another level. So we went to Neuro, and Neuro said, because it was past 8 o'clock at night, and they said to us, well, no, you can't, blah, 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 there is nobody here. Okay. And the guy wasn't very nice, actually. Went back to St. Anne to ask them, well, they're telling us, blah, blah, blah. And they said, no, we don't have him anymore. He got transferred to Neuro. So imagine 10 o'clock at night, I start to get pissed off, because I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? I am not. And Mommy Dearest was lost. And my mom, at that time, I never saw, I saw her cry once. And that was when my car accident, I talked about the car accident on the previous one. Did I do this one? I think it's this one. I don't remember. I think it's this one earlier in the podcast. Sorry. Yeah, I'm just out there today. But when, I will talk about the car accident afterwards. Let's talk about Mommy Dearest in the car first. Hey, stop, guys, please. So... I don't know, there's good energy going on here. I'm don't be horrified for what I'm talking. It's like, oh my God, Emma. It's like, you know what, life is life, okay? I'm sorry, but there is people who have a great life and it's fantastic, and some like I did, who, well, it was headache after headache, and you know what, you have to have a sense of humor to survive. All right, that's how I survive, that's how I do things, and I'm just fine. I'm mentally fine, people, don't worry about me. So back to neurology. We go, drive the car to neurology, park, went back again to the entry because you could not get to the hospital. It's 10 o'clock, 10:30 at night now. And I'm like, the guy said, well, we don't have it. Oh, I'm like, you know what? That's enough. I said, I am not leaving until you figure it out. Where's my father? He's not in St. Anne. It's here somewhere. I need your help right here, right now. And I'm like barely 18 years old when I'm doing this. Mommy Dearest is like, she doesn't know what up and down. And as I said, she's a strong woman. But at that time, because there were so many things happening between his health, her new job, trying to get that new job, everything was upside down, literally. Losing the house, we were on the verge to lose the house. So it was just an entire, quote unquote, I'm going to use the bad word, shit show. The guy finally looked at me and he said, okay, let's figure it out. Then he goes and look a little deeper into the paperwork, into the computer, and find Daddy Dearest, who was just relaxing in his room. So he allowed us at, now it's 11 o'clock, 11:30, because this is how long he took it, to go to his room, check it out for him. And I think they did the surgery on him that day. They spent 5 hours on him. They even recorded it. So I'm like, that's great. They recorded it. And they were able only to do to the frontal, and even when they look at the front, they did nothing because the blood coagulated after he had his aneurysm. He had 5, 2 in the back, under the head, and 3 in the front, and it was the left side actually. So while we were over there, he was still awake a little bit. So he woke up. We talked for a minute, and I looked at him and I said, "Oh, by the way, they got you to the wrong hospital. Vinatier is next door. You should have been to next door." So we joked about it for a few minutes. We got him. We knew where he was, so it was good. Mommy Dearest felt better. I'm like, okay, we're good. Go back. It was about midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning at least, and we had to leave very early to go down south. So again, brand new driver, got my driver's license, and again, you had to, and I told a story in the past. So the little one and I passed our driver's license the same year. We passed successfully, and we had a sign, and it was a magnetic one where it's the number 90, which means the speed limit for any driver is 90 kilometers, not 90 miles, but 90 kilometers, which is about 50 miles an hour. Yeah, we're going on a freaking highway. Do you really think Emma's going to take her shitty poo-poo with her? No, oh, he was in the back of the car. I left it in a trunk. I think, I don't remember if Mommy Dearest drove or if I drove, and I think I drove to go down. I don't remember if I did. She did a little bit and I did. And after the interview, then we went back up, which is a 2.5 hours driving. Then we had toll to pass first, because that's how they work. You take your tickets, and then you just drive until you exit, and when you exit, you pay your toll. And so from Marseille to Lyon, well, Emma, you know what? The car she had was a kick-ass car. That car had so much horsepower. It was a Renault 5 that she bought for herself, which was nice. That was the best thing she did. She made one mistake afterward because she thought she could not afford the payment, blah, blah, blah. She could. But I think with everything happening to her, the loss of the house, Daddy Dearest, dump us, whatever, left with the nurse, whatever crappy thing he did, he didn't. He hated my mom. It was just like, oh boy. But back to the highway first. And on a highway, she fell asleep. Okay. And Emma is driving, and I'm driving about close to it was 160, 170. I pushed the car to 170. I couldn't move up to about 200 kilometers per hour, but because I love that car, that was smooth. I was just driving, having my bun blast where she was sleeping. Then all of a sudden I'm hearing her said, she made a comment that basically I should not be, driving that fast. And I'm looking at her and I'm like, what? I said, do you see a 90 on the back of the car? I said, there is none. So what do we care? But she made a comment that was so hilarious. I cannot even translate it. I will have to remember the exact comment. But she just made a comment that, I did not help myself by driving that fast. And I'm like, who cares? There is no 90 little sign on there saying that I should limit myself to 90s. And I'm like, I know how to drive. So, I was comfortable with the highway. I knew how to drive, even with a few months of driving. I know how to handle everything. So it was pretty funny to do that when she woke up, and she didn't do anything else. It was just her commenting on that. And we went back home, and I'm like, who cares? People didn't realize. And trust me, we use, not here because in the US, California said that because it's the law. If you're not going as fast than the others, then you need to be on the right lane. The left lane is for people who are speeding, which is true. Trust me, I saw some. We had some of the trucks passing us. That was kind of scary, actually, how fast they were going, because they were going pretty fast. But especially at night when they're passing, you're like, boom, and like, holy crap, what was that? So. Here in Minnesota, I think even people can be slower on the extreme left line than the right one. But over there in Europe, when you're driving, the left lane is for people who are going fast. So the only thing you do is flashing your lights to say, okay, move out of my way. And people move out your way. And I did that because I had huge car like BM, Mercedes, where we were passing each other. It's like, it was fun, actually. I enjoyed it. But it was so funny when I got called on this one. To be honest with you, with the little one, we bought that little magnetic things. I think we put it on a car for less than a week, and after that we were just playing with it against the the refrigerator. We were playing with it and get it stick on the refrigerator. We never put it back on. I'm like, no, we are fine. And we did just fine, actually. We drove just fine. We never had any issues with anything. But that was the fun part of it. That car was awesome. But she did not went for the job over there, which was too bad. That was a great opportunity to work with a very wealthy family, blah, blah, blah. She did not took it because I think in her mind, she thought she probably needed to be where we were, which was one of the worst things she could ever do to herself, actually. Because at the end of the day, after Daddy Dearest went to a nursing home, and I don't know, it took years, and more than years, because it took me until a couple of years ago to really put the word narcissist to Daddy Dearest, because he was an extreme violent narcissist. And we always said when he turned 40, he went nuts, meaning he was extremely bright. My dad was extremely bright, extremely intelligent person, very, good at everything. Everything he touched, actually, he knew how to do things. He could, because he's an Italian, so he built houses. His father was, unfortunately, another one was violent. War was in there too. So, I don't give excuse for a lot of things, and there is no excuse. But the contest was, and you have to put this in a certain context where they were. He saw the war, he saw the blood, he saw the bodies. So imagine for a kid to be traumatized by that. You have to walk from any walk. They did not ride a train during the war. My grandfather, if I'm correct, crossed over with half of the kids. This is my understanding. And my grandmother stayed behind. They had a huge property. They had vineyards. They had a bunch of stuff over there. They were not poor. Let's put it this way. However, at the time of the war, then when they had a beautiful little, we call it a river, but here it would be more a stream, a very large stream, because we went there, and I remember that. I remember the vineyards. I remember there was an earthquake, and I could see, which is kind of scary when you look at it, the land being split. You could see that faulty line right there when that happened. And I remember we went there when we were kids, and it was very interesting to see how beautiful it was. A beautiful area with the vineyards, with that stream. And from what I've been told, that when the river turned red and bodies were floating in there, then my grandmother took the rest, because there were 7 children. She took him and the others, and they walk and cross the border, which is thousands and thousands of miles. So they did that. So that was one thing, children of war, and the way they grew up, the way the things were, then that's how he did. Okay. And again, I don't find any excuse on anything, but it is the life that he was. However, he hated my mom. The crap. And I'm laughing about it because people may be going to be offended. Don't be offended. Because I grew up in an environment that was the most toxic environment ever. But his hatred towards her and even us, at the end of the day, even still to this day, he's on the other side. His hatred was unbelievable. Because when they were not talking, and don't remember any days where they were not screaming, shouting at each other. They were clashing between the two of them. But he was extremely gifted. He was, my God, he was a builder. He was a foreman, actually, on huge constructions. Then he changed and decided to have a logging company. So we work in there too with the little one. The two of us were working from sun up to sundown. So we know manual work. I can tell you that. Know how to build a house too. He did so amazing things to other people that at the end of the day, never did anything for the house. But we have seen pictures of, and people were they were looking at, they were in marvel. They were like, oh my God, he did so. Yeah, he did. He did parquet. He did such a beautiful work in painting. The man was that freaking good. Even with no education or minimum, he was an avid reader. And I'm talking not only books, but encyclopedia and everything. My parents were very well educated outside of the school. They were very smart people. He did, as I said, did phenomenal things. However, when he went to that, nursing home, my mother wasn't talking to him. I think there were still a lot of anger and resentment still through the end of his life. This is what they were between the two of them. And I was sent over there to check on him, make sure he was okay, blah, blah, blah. And I noticed something with one of the nurses that I had a flash and they were together, but I did not say anything because I had no proof until he left the house. Or one day they went into the house, our house, he picked up his crap and he left. But it was very interesting the rest of his life, because the rest of his life was a mystery at some level. He appears, he disappeared. But throughout his life, the rest of his life, he was a bit of a chaos. And we had learned a lot. I have learned a lot. And I'm glad in one way the way we grew up, which was the harshest way to grow up, to be able to be equipped to continue on the road that I have been on. As I said, every single crap. I am going to write a book because this is like, holy crap. Like I said to people, Les Miserables in Cosette, next to Our Lives, it's a walk in a freaking park. But you have to look at circumstances, and throughout all of this is keeping a heart of gold, not being angry of their life, and realizing as a young age, by watching those two tearing each other apart, I looked at myself and I said, I do not want that crap in my life. This is not what I want. I see it, I feel it, this is not who I am. And as a kid, trying to find my escape, and that escape for me was and always been my imagination. Because I would have not had my imagination, my little fantasy world, I think I would have been completely damaged by those two. But I knew that at the end of the day, I had Lulu, are you done? My kids here doing just crazy things. My goodness gracious, where is Daddy? Where is the girl? I don't see Daddy. I think Daddy is on the upper hand over there. Okay. But throughout all of this, it's to be able to keep that heart of gold and to protect it. Making the right changes as well, realizing some of the pattern may have transpired, and it's like, no, I don't want this in my life. and being able to stand up for what is right. But sometimes it takes years to go back and look at it, and it's like, as I said, I will not change what happened to me. The good, the bad, and the ugly. I would not change it because the golden ticket is always there at the end. We have to go through our trials and tribulation in realizing that throughout life, people can do very nasty things to others. Not holding grudges, not letting them get into your head, which is hard sometimes. It's very, very hard when people will betray you. But it's realizing, you know what? Karma's going to deal with it. I don't have to. This is on them, not on me. I had to learn something. What was it? That's why I'm looking at what has been happening for the past several years and decades, even decades, because I realized very quickly, and the universe did, when I got people, when I was in corporate, a permanent person, I had people hunting me down just because I wasn't part of, I was the legacy, part of legacy, and they were the merger, and they were mad because they were taking over. And I'm like, well, if you don't like it, why don't you just go and do something else? But they were so much hatred toward those guys that they did it on the employees who had nothing to do with it. Hello. And at the end, when you walk away from the entire situation, when you walk away when people backstab you, and you realize, karma will deal with that. I don't have to. And have to explain to people, yes, you want justice. Yes, you want to see people crumble. But there is time that you are not gonna see it because you're not meant to. And you have to let it go. Having the faith of that. Looking back at the fire is to see the magic of the universe. Becoming the observer, not the interrupter, but the observer, stepping when I need to step in and let everybody give you a leg up. That was a big learning curve because we've learned at a very young age to take care of our own self. We were basically segregated, isolated, because our names were not the one from that country. We were not we were living on the outskirts of a village, 1,500 people. Those people didn't like us because we were not having your roots there. Because my dad, no, they came from Italy. My mom wasn't there. She ended up there for working there, but she wasn't originally from there. She was more a city girl, actually. I don't know why. It is life. Life is life. But when you are segregated, when you are being basically ostracized by people for no reason, and when you grow in an environment and people do not like you for no reason, you could harbor hatred. But if you flip the script and realize the situation you put in is not to give you the hatred, it's for you to experience all of this. It's a test since a kid. Just protect your heart of gold. Do not let the poison of hatred in there. I was lucky enough, quote unquote, to make the discernment between the relationship with my parents, because this is the most toxic. I think Chernobyl next to it, to both of them, was like, holy crap. It was not good. It took, like I said, it took me years because I didn't know. For us, we treated like, okay, he was a violent individual, extremely narcissist, would never let you win for anything. He had to crush you. And he have done it with me when I was learning chess, playing chess. Every time, I don't know how I did it. That's the universe. When I play things, let the universe play. And I was blocking his game. So he made sure that every time, he was mad because I was blocking him. So he he went nasty and made sure that every time he could, and I think it cheated too at some level. Daddy, stop. Every time I think he's cheated to win, but that's fine. I'm like, not a, I'm not gonna be holding grudges. I was just laughing at that. But looking and make the distinction of that relationship. And it's difficult when you're a kid, but watching it and said, I don't belong here. There is something wrong. Somebody got me wrong. And I always said it. And people thought I was joking. I'm like, no, somebody made a mistake. I am from a very wealthy family, and the lady that cleaned up that area just switched the babies around. That's all. I'm not, never felt fitting in, which is very difficult when you grow up and you don't fit in. You feel like, yeah, something is missing. I don't belong here. But seeing the toxicity, and it was very interesting because as a kid, you're thinking, oh well, those are the situation, the toxicity. And when he was going away, working for a week and come back on weekend, it was nicer. It was a little bit nicer because we only had to deal with Mommy Dearest and not the clash of the titans. But it was very interesting because when he left us, he dumped us in the middle of all of the nightmare because he had decided that we're gonna stick it to the bank by stopping to pay the mortgage, and we lost everything. She had to figure out everything. He left us, so he had the shelter, he had everything. He came up with a bunch of lies that he was the victim. All of the few people knew my parents went and sided with him, and it took decades for those people to realize it was a pure lie. One came back and apologized to my mom about, believing him. He was good at his lie. He was freaking good. He could have sell you the Eiffel Tower and everything else and you would buy it. I'm telling you, he was that good. But I always thought that at the age of 40, he turned crazy. And that's what we say. He flipped the switch and went nuts. Actually, it took me a couple of years ago to finally put the word narcissist. And I said, yes, he was an extreme narcissist. I'm like, oh my God, yes, he was an extreme narcissist. He was violent, but it was based on the life he lived before, and he only knew this one. So that's how he responded to us. And imagine a guy who's 6 foot tall and is 200 pounds, pure muscles, beating the crap out of your kids when they did something wrong. And I said beating up. I'm not talking slapping across the face. No. Beating it up. And we call it abuse these days. Those days it's just called, we are going to just give you, we're going to correct your behavior. So it was very, very interesting through all of that. Came back and not being as quote unquote damaged or hurt or full of hate, because that was the deal. It was like keeping that heart of gold precious, not letting the poison of hate in a heart running. And that to me is one of the biggest life lessons we can ever learn. So it depends, some people are going to say, well, Emma, you're saying that, blah, 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 blah. But you know what? I explained the story with the little one who lived with so many years with hatred. It became part of her. And for her to let it go, she could not. That to me is more damaging, because at the end of the day, you need to understand you're not here. Even if you try to seek revenge or get even with that person, you only can escalate it to the next level, which is not a good one. I let things happen in a way that when I left, I walked away. I've learned that from Mommy Dearest, actually. When you turn a page on somebody, it's gone. Done is done. Don't even bother. You don't exist anymore. And walking away from situation that happened to me, or for me, either way, whatever works best, is at the end of the day, those individuals who create those betrayals, who will backstab you, will throw you under the bus, they're living a miserable life too, because what you have done to you will happen to them, but this time to people who are they are closer to. They are betrayals, and it can be personal or professional. There is nothing to envy. There is nothing to seek out as revenge, and I have said that to several individuals when I was coaching, is to let them know that you don't have to see what karma is going to do to them. You don't need to. Maybe you will hear it from somebody later on. You never know. But let them be. They live in their own prison. Walk away. Keep your heart intact. And I've learned this my entire life. So for people who have done so wrong for so many years and throughout the years, I don't hold any grudges. I could care less. It's their monkey, their circus. And learn to live by being detached from all of this. At the end of the day, we're responsible for our own actions. My actions? Yeah, I've screwed up a few times. Jake could say that. I say, yes, Emma, you did. You learn along the way. But I always protected my heart because I don't want that poison in me. Plus, you know what? It makes you age faster. What the heck? Plus, it impacts your health. Why do I want to feel that I'm aging or I'm not? It impacts your organs. It impacts you physically, emotionally, and spiritually. I have no interest for that. So you set your boundaries. That's what I've learned. And I relearned those. Set the boundaries. And don't allow anybody to rain on your parade. So that will be the message for today. Well, that's another long one, and I'm sharing stuff that I normally don't share. Like I said, sharing stories, sharing the past is not reminiscing or venting or full of hate. Is sharing something that will inspire others. This is what it's all about. It's about allowing ourselves to share a story for someone who's going through it or who are dealing with something similar, who maybe look back at what they have done and how deal with it and just said, oh, I could have done better. Well, but you only knew what you knew at the time on how to deal with it. You have to give yourself that as well. Could you done better? Maybe, maybe not. The past is the past, but we can learn from it. You cannot erase your past. You can, if you wanted to, you could erase your past, but keep those life lessons handy so you don't make or repeat them. That's what it's all about. All my love, guys, and I will talk to you later. Bye now.
Where do we go from here?
Emma's Universe Podcast.